Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Be a Boss Coaching Podcast. Today's podcast will be talking branding, and I'm talking with a really good friend of mine, Jocelyn Lee, who I've known for about 10 years. I'm really excited for all of you to get a piece of her wisdom because she is so good at her job. She is an associate creative director for a branding and marketing agency called Case Agency, and she's been doing this for 17 years. So she has so much to share, so much knowledge to share around what branding is and breaking that down and really letting us know how you could develop your own branding strategy in your business. And if you're on my newsletter, last week I launched my Clarity and Strategy program. So I'm really excited to put that out into the world. I've gotten really good feedback, and I promise that this program was designed to help you use the power of strategy to get clear on your business objectives and doing it with strategy and how that really helps you to move forward with your business without all the overwhelm and eliminating uncertainty in the process. So I invite you to check that program out. It is a 3-call program. It is $200, and it's still a really good deal for the clarity that you're going to receive and for elevating your strategic game. So I'm really proud to have gone through the process of creating this, and to all the people that really helped me in this process and figuring out what this looked like in practice. So I'm excited to finally put it out and help you in your own entrepreneurship journey. Okay. If you're new here, welcome. If this podcast or any of the episodes helped you in any way, come on over to Spotify or Google or wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a rating or a review. You can also follow me on Instagram. You can follow me on LinkedIn. You can also check me out at beabosscoaching.com. So thank you so much for being here, and I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to the Be a Boss Coaching Podcast, a leading podcast where we redefine entrepreneurship through the entrepreneurship journeys of women of color, BIPOC, and queer entrepreneurs. I'm Beatriz Rivera, and as a social worker turned entrepreneur coach and podcast host, I share my own journey and story. I decided to start my own coaching business during the pandemic when I was helping my dad, a veteran business owner, to keep his 23-year-old business open. Since then, I've thrown myself into courses, coaching, podcasts, and books. However, I've learned that entrepreneurship is a journey, and we can all learn from each other's stories, mistakes, successes, and redefining the boundaries of what entrepreneurship can be. Subscribe to get new episodes every Monday and Friday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Okay, so we are officially live. Hi, Joce.
Amazing.
How are you?
Hello, Vita. How's it going?
Good. I'm so excited for you to be here. I'm always excited to talk to you, and every time we get to talk, I learn something new, and there's always something going on. So you're busy, girl.
No, likewise. It's so hard to get together, even though we're in the same city. I feel like, it's a rare occasion that we get to spend the time together and chat about life and, how business is going and everything. I'm always happy to hear your updates and, how things are coming. So it's very exciting. And thank you for having me on this podcast. I'm so honored to be here and can't wait to share some of the things that I've learned over the past few years.
Yeah, thank you so much. So just for some listener context, Jocelyn and I are friends from New York. We met, I want to say 9 years ago.
Maybe more? I don't know.
Probably 10 years ago. And so it's been awesome to be in your orbit, in your community. And honestly, you've seen my journey throughout all of this, but I'm so thankful for you. I know even as the times that we've talked about business and career, like you always have the best encouragement and words, and I always learn from you. So I wanted to bring that to the podcast. today.
Well, likewise. Well, I'm so happy to be here, but likewise, I mean, every time I have a conversation with you, I feel like I'm thinking about what it's like to start a brand and like from scratch and what is it that the audience is really looking for. And I love our discussions, our in-depth kind of like discussions that we have. And there's just so many ways of doing things, right? So kind of like seeing what everyone's perspective is very important.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So I do want to start with introducing you formally. So if you could say your name and then where you work and then
Absolutely.
we'll jump right in.
Yes, so my name is Jocelyn. Everyone calls me Joce.
Or Josh.
And or Josh, exactly.
Yeah.
Either way goes. But yeah, so I work at a design agency as an associate creative director. I love my job. I've been at this for way too long, maybe over 17 years or so. So I've been working in branding, in design, but mainly I specialize in packaging design. So that's my specialty. That's not something that I started from day one. It's something that I kind of build and learn to love and something that I can't move away from anymore because I love it so much. Yeah, so I'm
Yeah.
very honored to be able to kind of do the job that I do. It's definitely very creative. It's also very strategic at the same time as well.
Yeah, that's what I love about it. And I know just from my own personal experience and knowing you for a while, you're a very hard worker and I know you love your job. Like you do so much great work. I was just looking at the some of the work on the Instagram page that you shared with me and I was like, "Wow, like Joss, you've never really shared this like the actual way that it looks and how it looks within brands." So that's why I was so impressed. So just knowing that you have so much information but also then seeing your work visually as well, and that's super cool. Okay, so how did you get into the branding world? I know you said you've been in it for 17 years, but what brought you to design and that world in the first place? How did you decide to get into that career?
That's a great question. I have always been a terrible student. I'm definitely the worst student there is.
Yeah.
I don't like studying. I don't love, reading like words and like maths. It's just not my thing. And I was really drawn to art since I was really, really young. But everyone has told me art is something that's really hard to get into and especially build a career. So when I first went to college, I was looking into, what is it about art that I like? So there's like fine arts that you could kind of go into. You could go into sculpture, you could go into fashion. There's so many different areas that you could go into. And I could not decide what I wanted to do in my life because I feel like that's usually is the deciding factor of what you want to do. And then you have to stick with it for as long as you can until you change your career. But I couldn't quite figure out what was it that I wanted to do. So for me at that time, graphic design, which is also called communications design, was kind of like a 360 industry where you could really do anything. And graphic design, it could be all encompassing. It could be like logo, it could be like a brochure, it could be designing a magazine, it could be packaging. So it could be really anything. And that's what I loved about it is that, I didn't need to decide what I wanted to do then. I still had time to keep figuring it out. And I'm so glad I did because I think with graphic design, it really led me to explore what I wanted to do. I tried doing website design, I've tried logo, branding, I've tried, social media. I've tried so many different avenues of it. But I think what really stuck and what I love the most is packaging design. So that was the one thing that really drew me in and now I can't stop.
Yeah, yeah. I know I've seen that some of the work and I was like, "Oh my God, that's beautiful." So I
Thank
know that
you.
you do such a great job with that. I really love it. If I ever have a product that I sell, I know I don't have any products, but if I ever have a product, I will definitely come to you. And
Definitely give
hopefully,
me a shout.
yeah, hopefully I make you enough money by then to be like, I can pay you handsomely.
No.
Okay.
It's always free between friends.
No,
So.
I still gotta pay you, girl. I still gotta pay you. Okay, so I'd like to go into the difference between branding and marketing because I feel like those two can they overlap sometimes and then some
Mhm.
people feel like they might be the same thing or are synonymous with each other. So can you tell us what is branding first of all?
Yeah,
And then how does
absolutely.
it relate to marketing?
Yeah, that is a great question. I get, especially people not within the industry, they get confused all the time. Is it the same thing? What do you do first? That's always a question that get asked. I think what's really interesting is that branding usually comes first. Because think about what a brand is. It's a brand is not just okay if you provide a service or if it's in store, the product that you sell. Not only that, but like branding could be yourself. You could brand yourself, right? Kind of like what you do, your services and yourself. You've branded it, the logo that you choose, the font, the colorway, so that you could really give a lasting impression to the people that you're engaging with. And so I think a lot of the times branding really comes first because you want to set yourself up as like something recognizable to the whole world, right? And then marketing comes in. So once you have set that foundation up of who you are, you know who you're selling to and what services that you're selling, and then the people are recognizing you through your brand, then you could be able to market it, right? Like you could take that brand and you can market it. Marketing, it means you could have paid ads, you could have campaigns, you could have talk video. It could be really any way that you really sell yourself. But I think it really starts with branding first. And I think that's the interesting thing about it is that you start with that. And then once you build your whole encompassing kind of world, then you take it to marketing, and then you then take it to the next level and the next step of how do you expose that amazing creation that you created to the world.
Ooh, so good. I really love that distinction, right? Because I think a lot of people get, like I said, really confused about
Mhm.
the branding aspect of they think that that is their marketing. That is what marketing
Mm,
is. If I work
mhm.
on branding myself, like that's it. That's my marketing. And that's usually where I had that same thought as well. Or the opposite, like they'll just be like, I'm just gonna market myself and then maybe not create a cohesive brand around what they're doing or their product. So so
Yes.
that's really good to know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it could be any brand. I'm just going to take the most iconic brand that you could think of. Let's say Coca-Cola, right?
Yeah, yeah.
When you first think of it, is that like, of course, it's a packaging that you're thinking about, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
red, it has white type on it, it says Coca-Cola on there.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just so iconic that you could close your eyes, you could go anywhere in the world. And when you see it in the fridge, something that's red and white with the script, you know it's Coca-Cola. Maybe it's not even in the same language that you're used to, but you
yeah.
immediately recognize that as Coca-Cola. And I think that's the power of branding is that it transcends on into different market. You could see an ad and you're like, oh, it's a Santa Claus, the Coca-Cola Santa Claus is a polar bear. Like you already immediately know, or just like the way that the Coke can opens and like the sizzling and fizziness
Yeah.
of it. You're like, oh, I hear it. It just all of that is like built by marketing, right? Once you create a brand, once you create the red color palette, once it becomes iconic, now you market it to the world. And once you market it to the world, you use all these different tools and different channels to market it. And now everyone recognizes you. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the power of branding is like the brand recognition, but also the brand loyalty as well. They
Mm-hmm.
not only just come to you for the first time, they come back to you over and over and over again
Mm-hmm.
because they know that you have that credibility or because, they have that lifestyle that they have been wanting to have and to be a part of.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, thank you so much for that. Okay, so since you mentioned a really iconic brand like
Mhm.
Coca-Cola, right? It feels like sometimes branding can feel like maybe out of reach, especially for
Mm,
like
uh-huh.
brand new entrepreneurs or like brand new business owners or maybe solopreneurs. Um, can you talk about who is branding for? Yeah.
Link. Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's honestly, it's for every product that's out there. So anything that you see on the shelf or not on the shelf could be, if you look around in your home, every single thing is branded. Everything from the personal care stuff that you use every day to the food that you buy to, the sofa that you're sitting on. It could be anything. It's all branded, right? But beyond products, I think it's service as well. Like if you're thinking about the bank that you use, the app that you're using on your phone is not a physical product, but it's branded. Like Google, we're using, Google Chrome, for example, to be on this chat or Zoom. That's all very well branded. And then beyond product and services, people. I would say right now with social media, I would say the people who are has a lot of audience and is really engaged with their audience, they are very well branded. And maybe you don't see it visually. So they're not using like a red logo, on the top of on top of their TikToks or anything like that. But branding comes in different shapes and sizes and forms. So visually branding it, which is like a logo, a set of color, the fonts that you use, the specific packaging that you have. All of those things are branding, but also you have to think about it as like the tone of voice, the way that you speak to your consumers. Are you, is the way that you speak to your consumers, is it funny? Is it like a meme, or is it very serious? And I think with social media, that's how a lot of people brand themselves, right? It's a way that they express or talk to the consumers, and that's why you follow them, and that's why you go back over and over and over again. So that's definitely a way of branding. It really comes in all these different forms. So like I said, it's product, it's services, it's people. Everything can be branded. And if you want a presence, if you want to engage with your audience, whoever that may be. It could be your mom or it could be the entire world. It's always nice to have this branding, sort of say.
I like that because I'm thinking about my emails.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking about my emails, and in my emails, I include memes and
Oh, I love
gifs.
that. Yes.
Because I just, at least for me, I like memes, and
Yeah.
I don't like my emails to feel really serious, even though it is
Hmm.
about entrepreneurship and business, and at the same time, my mission is to redefine entrepreneurship, right? So we can
Yeah.
be silly and we can um, inject humor and ourselves into our business. So I like including memes because that's who I am. I like memes, I like gifs.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, so
And I
that's
think
really
that's
cool.
what sets you apart from everyone else, right? Like it's funny because when I see you have a podcast up or I see something, it always starts with a little graphic that you have going on. And I was like, ooh, I know it's the start of the podcast. I know it's the end of the podcast. I know exactly who you're featuring. And I look at that and I was like, oh, okay, let me click on it. Like it for me, that becomes a constant reminder. And then the more time I see the Beatrice podcast and like I was like, oh, I recognize that, and my brain automatically just clicks on it. It's even like a secondary reaction that is subconscious. So I
Yeah.
think that is again the power of branding. It becomes like a habit, something that you just go to over and over again.
Okay, that's really good to know. But what businesses or why do
Mhm.
businesses need branding in general? Like, why is it important to really think about that as you begin in your business?
Yeah, I think the first thing is brand recognition, right? So that you could be able to recognize your brand. It could be Pepsi, it could be Bank of America. It's that brand recognition. That's number one. I think another thing to think about is how you differentiate between you and someone else. So, like you said, you like to put memes at the end of your email, which is great. That's a point of differentiation. You just branded yourself as someone who has that sensibility, that humor to it, and no one else does that. So then people will remember you. And then I think another thing is like building up that credibility with the consumer, the trust and the credibility. So people see you over and over again. They're like, oh, okay. Like, I think she knows what she's talking about. Like, I get it. Like, she's had listening to all these like people she's been interviewing, or she's been giving really good advice and tips and things like that. And then that sticks with the consumers. And then that's why they come back to you again and again. And then lastly, I love the idea of branding being a way of storytelling. And I know that's something that we have talked about a lot, over the past like year or two as you're starting up your business. And one of the things that I find very true, whether it's I'm designing a packaging, or it could be a logo, or it could be a social media post, I really think about what is the story that I'm really trying to tell at that point in time. What is the brand like? What is it about? How do I capture the essence of what it's trying to say? So, for example, Beatrice, you were saying about your what you do. You want it to have a sense of humor, like even though you're talking about something serious. And so if I were to create a product for you, I will want to make sure that I convey that sense of humor in like, let's say, a bottle, right? Like you're creating a drink, and I will want to convey that in that bottle. Um, so that it really feels like the story continuates, not like beyond just your podcast, beyond just your social posts and your tips and the whole brand that you've created, but also translates into other aspects of your brand as well.
I like the storytelling aspect of that because I think it's not something you automatically think about when it comes to branding. It's like you said, it
Mm-hmm.
comes up. You think of it as, oh, colors and the fonts and the specific way that a packaging looks, but the story behind it is not something that I don't think it comes to mind. And but I believe good brands do have a really good story behind them. So
Yeah. And the
that's a
story
good
could be a
point.
feeling. It could just be a feeling, right? Like some of the brands that we work with, like Summer Fridays, for example, it's less about, oh, I know exactly how they founded the brand. It's not really about the story of, the brand founders as much as like when you're using Summer Fridays, like the skincare brand, how does it make you feel? Why is it that it's so coveted, between all the influencers of that, between all the people who shop at Sephora? Because they want to be a part of that feeling. They want to be a part of that group. They want to have, that kind of aesthetic. They like the aspirational piece of it. So I think that is the power of branding too, is the connection between my brand and how I really understand my consumers, and then giving the consumers a piece of that. And the consumers like, oh wow, you really get me. I feel like I'm living it like in that dream. I
Mm,
feel like I have a piece of that. And yeah, it is a very special feeling. Again, it doesn't have to be packaging. It
mhm.
could be a service as well. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud banking because I have my bank credit card next to me. When I'm thinking about banking and let's say Robinhood, it's
Yeah.
not like before Robinhood, there were no other institutions that do stock exchange. There's so many other institutions. Why was Robinhood so successful? Because one of the things is the user interface, which is a part of the branding. It's
Mhm.
so easy to use. People are able to navigate through it, especially the younger generations. You don't need to go to a stockbroker and ask them a bunch of questions. You could do it yourself. So having the platform, having the accessibility to it, it just
Mm.
becomes something that's so much more tangible.
Yeah, I love that example just because I never thought of it that way. And Robin Hood, when you think about Robin Hood, he's like this advocate for the masses, right? Like everyone can
Yeah.
have access to the wealth and
Yeah.
spread the wealth. And so
Yeah.
that's the story
Sorry. It
that I
is.
didn't even think
Yes.
about. But that's their whole idea is like
Ethos.
we want to,
Exactly.
yeah, they want to have this the stock and stock trading as accessible to everybody. So
Yeah. Absolutely.
that's a great example. I'd like to go into should we go into breaking down branding? Is that
Sure, yeah.
how can we break it down
Mm-hmm.
into something that feels that maybe then flow into how we can do it on a budget? Because I think a lot of
Yeah.
people can feel like branding is you can invest, I think, a lot of money into your
Mm-hmm.
branding presence, but if we're just starting off,
Yeah.
how can we do that?
Okay, so I'll give you a simple breakdown of a general high level approach. So, a lot of companies, they come to us, whether it's like small, little startup companies to all the way big, giant corporations, when they come to us at a design agency, this is kind of how we would do it. So, we would sit down with them, do a little quick little workshop, understand what is it that they need, what are they trying to sell. It could be a service, it could be a product, and then understanding the brand, whether it's an existing brand or it could be a completely brand new brand. And we will approach it more or less the same way by understanding the brand, by doing research, by seeing if they already have a brand strategy. So, a lot of the times, if they don't have a brand strategy, our strategy team comes in, they start helping them define the strategy. And so, what the strategy really does and why it's so crucial before doing any design when it comes to branding is really tapping into the consumer, right? Like we've been talking about it for the whole time now. It's all comes down to the consumer. It all comes down to who you're targeting. So, who's the age group that you're targeting? Like, are you going for, let's say, women between the ages of 30 and 45? It doesn't have to be so narrow of a group, but whatever you defined for your customer base, that is, the goal, and we should understand the mindset of what these people are thinking. What are the brands that they're shopping? What cars are they driving? What kind of food are they eating? How are they surrounding themselves? And what makes them tick, right? Then once you understand that, then you go, well, how does the product or how does that service fit into their lifestyle? What do we need to do that? So with that, then we just decide, a lot of other strategic thinking that comes into it. We have the strategy team that talks about, okay, how do we analyze this? How do we create almost a strategic offering that's for this specific brand? And then from there, once we define what the strategy is for the brand, we then go into the design phase of branding. So the design phase of branding is when we, take everything that we've learned from strategy, all the research we've done, all the client provided documents that we have, and then we go into, okay, let's develop a logo for them. Let's create some color palettes for them, the font, making sure that everything is consistent, no matter whether they're using it on packaging, are they using it in the presentation deck, are they showing up on a website or social media? It should all be consistent because the consumers are going to be looking at this brand in all different angles, right? And so you want that brand recognition overall. So once we create like a brand identity, that's what we call it, identity package for them, we then go into execution. So once we have that defined, we go into, okay, well, the execution of it could be through packaging. So they offer 10 products. So let's design the packaging for these 10 products based on this identity that we've kind of created for them. Or then let's now do the website. Let's now do like social media posts. Let's now do an ad campaign for it. But all really starts from the strategy, then going into the brand identity, then it goes into the execution. That's what we call the different kinds of execution.
Ooh, that I hope everyone took notes, honestly. Like I feel
And
like
it might,
I need to like pause and go back. So I'm gonna re-listen to all of this, and I'm sure whoever's listening is gonna have to pause and go back and re-listen to everything because that was really good. Yeah.
I'm sorry. When I think about it, I'm also like mapping things out in my mind as well. Like this is kind of how I see it. Is okay, it's in one chunk, the second chunk, and then the third chunk. Like, and this is the process of how branding is. And of course, it's very fluid. You don't have to do it like this. It does
Mm-hmm.
seem very daunting. It seems, oh, there's so many different layers that goes into it. It doesn't have to be, right? Again, think about it like how many successful people on social media are doing well. They don't really have a specific font. They don't have a specific color palette. That's totally fine. I think when we're thinking about branding, it's so traditional, right? That, oh, it has to be this, it has to be that. And this is the way that we do it. And of course it is if we're thinking about consumer goods, because you're going to be displayed on the shelf. And then you're going to have an ad that's connected to this packaging that you're going to buy on the shelf. So you need to make sure the consumer is relating the two things together. But if you're, maybe you're branding for a service, you may not need to be so rigorous about this whole process. And it does not need to be as daunting.
Yeah. Ooh, I like that. I like that there's a distinction between the consumer goods and then the services, because I feel like people can get caught up in the minutia, right, of branding if they're a service, and people really can attract clients through their brand, but because they're really just being themselves, and that's consistent across
Yeah,
their emails and
exactly.
their like social media. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's really good. That's a good way to think about it.
Yeah, like copy, you were saying, right? Like the tone of voice, like we were talking about, like you adding a meme, that's branding to a certain extent. Yeah, you may not have created a color palette that you're using across all your emails, but like now is something that's very recognizable to you, and you kind of like own that, like adding meanings to the end of your email. And I love that, like that quirkiness, that personality really kind of comes through
Yeah.
across different things. And like the way that you write an email, the way that you format things, the way you speak to your audience, and that's all a part of branding.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good to know. Okay, so are there any free resources that you can think of that people can use if they wanted to tackle the idea of branding for their business?
Absolutely. I highly recommend. Again, it doesn't have to be millions of dollars to create a brand. You could start from scratch. I think what is nice about AI nowadays, and of course, there's different debates whether AI is good or is it destroying the world. I mean, see it however you like. But I think there's some very, very useful tools out there. So I would say, in terms of free tools, start with something like ChatGPT. If you don't know where to start and you're creating your brand from scratch, again, whether service or product, go to ChatGPT and just ask it a bunch of questions. So, what do I need to do? I want to start a brand, and the brand is about X, Y, and Z. Ask ask this question, and it will start generating ideas. It may not always be the right idea, but at least it will give you a place to start, right? And then you start asking it more questions. Okay, well, if I create a brand like this, then how what do I need to do? Or can you give me some free tools to start creating a logo for it? And then it will populate a bunch of answers and then give you suggestions and options of like where you could kind of start. So AI, ChatGPT is like the first and foremost place that I usually go to when I have questions. And definitely take it with a grain of salt because I think that some of the answers are amazing, some of them are not. So definitely still do your own research. But I think it's a great thought starter kind of area. So from there, I would say if you're doing design or if you want some quick ideas generated, Midjourney, again, is an AI tool. Midjourney is really great. You could kind of like type in what you wanted to create and you could help create, some of those ideas that's kind of like in your head, but you're not able to execute it. That's a great place to go about. And then again, go back to ChatGPT, ask for it. If you're trying to do a logo, there's a lot of AI logo softwares out there. If you're trying to do packaging, there's a handful of them too. So it really depends on what you need, all the way to presentation. If you need an investor deck, right? Let's say you need to find investors and you need to create a deck for them. Go to ChatGPT, ask it, like, what are some of those great investor deck tools that I could use? That's AI generated. And then you fill in the blanks, right? Then I would say another place to go to beyond AI is friends. I love having all my talented friends around me. Whenever you have a question, you go ask them. Like, don't be afraid to ask for help. That's something that I've learned over the years. Always ask the people around you, and that's how you gather information. So ask friends if they have a special talent. Would they be able to help you to work on a project together? And then lastly, there is a lot of paid resources out there. So freelance resources, it is not like an agency. You could find people on Instagram, for example, like you may be able to just hit them up. You're like, oh, I love your work. I'm working on this project. Would you be open to helping me do a logo or to do X, Y, and Z? A lot of people would be open to something like that. If you don't find anything on Instagram, there's also a few websites called Upwork or Fiverr, 99 Designs, and there's a lot more out there. But those are good starting off points of it could be paid by project or it could be paid per their time. So it really depends on, what kind of payment system you guys want to do. And it depends on the project need that you have as well.
Ooh, thank you so much for that. Those are all really good resources. So I know Fiverr. I've used that before. Even Sean's on Fiverr.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. So he
awesome.
helps with websites and stuff. So I know it is a
That's
really good
great.
resource. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like you could get everything on Fiverr, right? Like it could be a packaging to like logo to like website, like you were saying, like it could be social media, brand ID. It could be everything. You could create your whole system on Fiverr. So highly recommend checking them out.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what's funny, Joss? I actually asked Sean to be like, "Babe, can you make a logo?" Because he's
It's
really artsy like that.
yes, I
And
love
he
it.
helped me
Is
out.
he the one who created the logo for you?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's amazing. That's so great. That's what I mean. Ask people around you for help, right?
Yeah, for sure. You never know. You really don't
You
know
never
who can.
know.
Even I mean, I got lucky with him, but you might find someone in your with your family or like friends of friends that could really help out. So that's a
Yeah,
really great tip.
I ask Rob all the time for help. I was like, I can't edit this video. I don't know how to do this. And he's all right, just send it over to me. And I was like, thank you.
Isn't it great to have partners that are doing in design or creative fields? So,
Yes,
and
it is great.
you guys are both in creative fields, so that's pretty cool.
I wish that one of us wasn't in creative field. I wish he did like he was accountant or something. He could do my taxes. That would be even better.
Oh gosh, I know. Just I'm so done. I just started my taxes today, and I had to take a break. Yeah, it's
Don't get me
terrible.
started. I have not started, so let's not start on that
Yeah.
topic.
Okay. All right. Well, I feel like we got a lot of really good information. Thank you so much, Joss, for bringing
Of
your
course.
expertise and everything. I know that in my journey, just talking to you has always helped me. And even if it's not branding, you always encourage me to do different things. So I appreciate you all the time. I'm
Oh,
excited to see you in Malaysia.
yeah, likewise. Well, thank you so much. I mean, I always have such a blast talking to you and like brainstorming. I was like, oh yeah, I never really thought of that. And we're just like powwowing, throwing ideas out at each other. And it's just so fun. It's so great. I
Yeah.
love that. And I think I miss that a lot. Like how during pandemic time, like everyone
Hmm.
was kind of shut in and like there wasn't a lot of that physical bantering and like
Hmm.
uh, that like in-person conversation. You could just spitball ideas. Like I miss that.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that like we're kind of like all back out and meeting in person, though we need to see each other more often.
Yeah, I need to come over. I feel like you definitely have your own brand. So, like your house is the most beautiful house I've ever seen. I that's like a dream for me is and I can see why because you're so natural. You're such a natural at creating beautiful design all over in other areas of your life, not just work. So,
That's so
I
sweet.
love it.
Well, speaking of the house, it was mainly, of course, we wanted a space that we could live and we feel happy and comfortable in. But
Mhm.
also, I've always had the idea of like when we're designing the house, it should be for shoots. So I already kind of had that in mind. way back when. And then now that the house is like always 80% done, we've actually listed our house on some of the websites so that you're right, it is branded now because we list the house up for shoots and, and all of that. And so we have a specific like layout, design, and like template and all of that. That's kind of like dedicated to the house. So
That is genius. Joss, that is genius. I honestly, like, if I hire someone, honestly, I'm down to go to your house and take pictures. I have a camera. I have a Sony camera. I need new pictures for my website and just like pictures of me that are professional. So I have a professional camera.
Wow.
So I'd like to go and take pictures at your house. Yeah.
Yes. Well, you know what you should do? Okay, so you're gonna come to my house, and then my sister could take pictures of you because she's a professional photographer, so like she could do that. And then you see, like we're all the services done.
Oh my Lord. Okay. So oh my God. Yeah, that would be great. As I have the camera, with Sean being in a creative field, we have the stuff. We have the camera, we have the stuff. But sometimes it's just hard to find the locations or the space that feel like good aesthetic places to take pictures in. So
yeah.
Your house is perfect. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Well, you are more than welcome here anytime. Anytime.
Awesome. Thanks, Joce. So I want to thank you for being on the podcast, for gracing us with your time. And you don't have to, and I can totally, honestly, I can edit this out later. But do you want to share if people want to like learn about where you work or case agency?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that would be great. I don't know the handle, so give me a second.
That's okay.
Wait 1 second. Let's see. Oh, okay. So it is Case Agency. That's the handle. So if anyone wants to follow the agency that I work at, we do a lot of branding for mainly beauty and lifestyle brands. Give us a check out. It is at Case, CASE Agency, AGENCY. And yeah, you can find us there on Instagram. You can find us on our website. We worked with small startup brands all the way to big, large corporations like Procter & Gamble, Unilever, Shiseido, you name it. We've kind of like worked with all the big brands, but we also always love working with startups as well. So feel free to check us out there.
Yes, I already follow you there. Well, I follow you at Case Agency. Both yours and Case.
Mine is terrible. I'm not branded. I have not posted anything since 2018. So do not follow my personal one.
Are you saying you're a creeper, Joss? Yes. Just like people's posts.
Exactly. I just follow other people, but then I don't post anything, and I love that.
Yeah, it's okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Joss. I appreciate you, and I'll see you soon.
Amazing. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Be a Boss Coaching Podcast. Remember to come on over to the beabosscoaching.com and book your free discovery call where you can learn more about coaching with me, what it takes to start a business and grow the skills while growing your business at the same time. I'm excited to learn more from you. Remember to sign up to our newsletter and come back every Monday and Friday for new episodes.